So personally, obviously, I've been a Tesla shareholder for many, many years. Took the most insane profits I could have ever imagined from a stock, from the stock a couple years ago, and phenomenal. And I still obviously hold many hundreds of thousands of dollars of shares in Tesla stock, right? And I've been a Tesla customer for years. My first Tesla ever was a Model 3 in 2019, if I recall. It was the 2018. I think it was 2019 I bought my first ever Tesla. It's Model 3, great experience, and I love Teslas ever since. I currently have Model X and I have Model S Plaid, right? So I was thinking about myself, right? Because I have an order in for a Cybertruck. And I was thinking, if Tesla wanted to deliver me a Cybertruck, at the end of this year, would I go ahead and buy that Cybertruck? Now, keep in mind, when I do get the Cybertruck, I'm likely going to get rid of my Plaid. Why am I going to get rid of my Plaid? It's going to serve no purpose. I work from home. My wife doesn't work. So there's honestly not even a need for us to have two cars. It's honestly kind of a waste of resources, in my personal opinion, right? But nonetheless, to have three cars would even be a bigger waste of resources when, one person doesn't work and the other person works from home. Like, that's just a complete waste of resources, right? So I would likely get rid of the Plaid. But here's how I'm thinking about this, right? The Plaid I still owe like $80K on that roughly, and I pay a 2.49% interest rate on my Plaid, right? And I got that back in, I think it was 2021 or so, when interest rates were insanely low. So if I was to go ahead and, let's just say I ran the numbers and just kind of played around with this a little bit. If I was to get that same Model S Plaid today, it would be $118,000, obviously, before all the, taxes and all that other crap, that's added on there, right? If I was to go get that same auto loan, right, that I got a few years ago, today, from Chase would charge me likely a 7 to 8% interest rate today. 7 to 8%. Now, I went ahead on Tesla's website and I was like, let me see what Tesla would offer me likely for an interest rate. Now, Tesla claims they could get me like a 6.2% type rate, right? Which would undercut kind of probably what Chase would charge me right now, which would be probably 7 to 8%. We're still talking about nearly 4 percentage points higher than what I got the Plaid for a couple years ago, right? So that's a pretty significant number, and especially when you tack on several years of this, right? It's a big difference in the amount of money you're going to pay every month. Every month. And at the end of the total of what you owe for that car, it's a much, much bigger amount. You could be talking about, if you're talking about between a 2% interest rate and a 7% interest rate, you could be talking about, tens of thousands of dollars of difference, potentially, depending upon how long you kind of take that loan out for, right? A mortgage is the worst. Like, the difference in a mortgage between a, 3% mortgage and a 7 or 8% mortgage is like night and day difference. Those are the worst because obviously the dollar amount and how far you push that out. But even a car loan is pretty bad, right? So if I thought about myself and I said, okay, if I had the option to get a Cybertruck this year, would I get the Cybertruck this year? And the answer to that is no, I wouldn't. It would not be a responsible financial decision from me. And as much as I love Tesla, I wouldn't buy it this year. I'll wait till interest rates go down. And if they don't go down anytime soon, I'm perfectly fine. I got a Model S Plaid to drive in the meantime, and that's perfectly fine with me, right? But that's the way I look at it. And so now the thing with me is it's more of like a financially responsible decision, right? Is it going to change my life one way or another if I had the Cybertruck or a Plaid and interest? No, for me, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. It does just from the principle of like me caring about money, right? And just trying to make somewhat wise financial decisions. But the other problem is for most people, they don't have the sort of money I have. They can't afford it, just to be flat out. The difference between a interest rate, if you're going to pay a 7 or 8%, and mind you, if Tesla's offering a 6.2% interest rate, it's for if you have super great credit. Most people don't have super great credit. So what most people would have to pay is a 7, 8, or 9% interest rate. Now, in order for Cybertruck to really run up numbers, we need to sell this in mass. It can't be just a little volume mover. If they sell 10,000 Cybertrucks, it's nothing. It's not going to move Tesla's numbers. We need to sell hundreds of thousands of Cybertrucks consistently, pretty much almost quarter in and quarter out to really start shaking up those numbers and really start giving us a next big boost. If people can't afford the Cybertruck, that's a problem, right? Because of interest rates. That's not just a problem for Tesla, it's a problem for all automakers. And so that's something we all have to take into account here, that we have a big problem working against Tesla that just in past years, this wasn't an issue. Interest rates weren't an issue for Tesla's in its whole life cycle until now. Literally. Interest rates were an issue 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago. It's just now it's becoming an issue, and that's completely out of Tesla's hands right now, right? Well, folks, I spent all afternoon driving around Las Vegas, flying a drone around for you guys so I could take some photos and videos of what I call the most mixed bag, confusing economic picture of, let's just call it the last maybe several decades, to be quite frank. So you're hearing about rates going the highest they've gone in several decades, right? And that's pretty much rates across the board. And even looking at mortgage rates here today on CNBC, one of the famous things they're talking about is mortgage rates are now the highest they've been in many decades. So we're looking at this environment in which we have an economy where people are very confused on what's going on, where we're headed here. And it's the most confusing time, certainly in modern times when it comes to the economy. Certain time periods are very obvious of like, oh, things are just going to get better and, you know, kind of consistently kind of move forward. Certain times things are very obvious, like, oh, this is going to get bad, this is going to get worse, right? 2008, definitely one of those scenarios. I think 2020, it was pretty obvious, you know, when they were shutting down the economy. And then all of a sudden they started doing the stimulus. It was like, oh, it's really bad. Oh, it's going to get a lot better from here. But right now, and you know, especially if you're trying to forecast this next year or two, very confusing times, okay? So let me show you some photos and videos I took here today with my drone, just kind of show you guys what we're looking at, okay? So it started out here in Lake Las Vegas, and I thought I would just show you guys like how much land they're clearing for homes to be built. Now, the only reason you're going to clear massive amounts of land is if you feel like you're going to be able to sell a whole bunch of homes over the next couple years, okay? So you're hearing about mortgage rates are at a multi-decade high, while simultaneously I'm looking, and it's shocking to show you some of the photos and videos I have to share with you here today in terms of how much land they're clearing and how many homes they expect to sell over this next, you know, let's call it 1 to 2 years. It's absolutely astronomically high, right? Now, this was fascinating because flying that drone today, it was a little nostalgic flying it because it's the same drone I used back in the day. I never fly it nowadays. I've just had it like sitting in a closet. But this was the same drone I used years ago back when I had my real estate marketing company. It's crazy how much of a coincidence this is. Because I looked at the photos, and the last photo I ever took with that drone was way back in 2017. And it was in Lake Las Vegas this was the last home I ever filmed with that drone back in 2017, which was right around the time. I don't know how many of you guys know my whole story and whatnot, but I used to run a real estate marketing company years ago. And basically my YouTube's channel started getting more and more popular in 2017. And I had a very tough decision to make. Was I going to shut down my real estate marketing company and focus full-time on YouTube? Or was I going to keep trying to do this half YouTube, half like a real estate marketing company? And I made a very tough decision at the end of 2017 to shut down that business. And I sent an email to all my customers, all my clients that I'd spent the last 2 years building up, because I started that business the end of 2015, really getting into 2016. And I sent them all an email. And I didn't really tell them what I was going to do at that point in time because it was, you know, at that time especially, like you couldn't really like say, oh, I'm going full time on YouTube. It was awkward. So, you know, a few people want to know, like, well, what are you up to? Like, why are you shutting down the business? Like, you know, you're making money, like it's a success and those sorts of things. And I just focused on YouTube full time. And, you know, years later, obviously it was the right decision to make because yeah, I mean, I don't need to explain why it was the right decision to make. But anyways, I shut that down. And so it's fascinating to see that, right? So check this photo out here, you know, just massive land clearing for lots on lots on lots on lots, Lake Las Vegas. You know, it is such a damn confusing time. And it's one of those time periods I just feel like you got to be very balanced. You know, you got to be adding to your longs, you got to be adding to hedges for next year, and you got to be keeping cash on the sideline because this is in my opinion the most confusing next, let's call it 12 to 24 months to forecast I've ever seen. You know, 2010 through about 2020 was very easy to forecast up until Rona, right? Very easy time to forecast. It was like, you know, unemployment just kept dropping and, you know, the economy just kept getting a little better, a little better, a little better. And, you know, that was what it was. Very easy time to forecast. You know, 08, 09, obviously easy time to forecast. Like things were just bad, you know, simple. Right now, whew, I mean, I could see an upside where things don't get bad and they actually soar higher and we have a very fun next year or two. And I can see a situation where, you know, the stuff hits the fan and 24 gets ugly. And so that's why you got to be very balanced in this market. You got to really be on your game. Let's put it that way, okay?